So over the next several minutes, Union Ministers Piyush Goyal and Ashwini Vaishnav will be joining me on the broadcast, as will former Finance Minister, Congress heavyweight P. Chidambaram. I want to go across first to Parameswaran Iyer, the Chief Executive Officer of the NITI Aayog, and he works especially on the social sector side of things. And one of the areas of concern which have been raised by members of the opposition, and I want your response on it, that there hasn't been adequate spending on the social sector. If you go scheme by scheme, allocation by allocation, on many of the social sector side of things, the allocations are either flat or they're in the negative. While there's a big thrust on public infrastructure, has the social sector not been given as much importance? How do you respond to that? Parameswaran Iyer.
No, thanks, Rahul. I think, in fact, the thrust on the social sector, or you could call it social infrastructure, has been phenomenal in this budget. So it's really balanced. It's a budget for all. So in addition to the huge increase in capital expenditure of 10 lakhs next year, the continued 50-year interest-free loan to state governments for another year, in addition to all that, which is really going to drive medium-term growth, look at the emphasis on the social sector. I can immediately think of the PVTG mission, the Pradhan Mantri particularly vulnerable tribal group. There are about 28 to 30 lakh of tribals who are at the bottom of the ladder, and 15,000 crores has been allocated for giving them basic services in just 3 years. I think that's a huge step in terms of inclusion. But so many of the other programs, whether it's for artisans, whether it's for farmers or youth, I think that the focus of the government on the social sector has continued and even been accelerated. Okay,
let's go scheme by scheme. Manrega allocation down about 13,000 crore rupees. Ayushman Bharat flat with an increase of just 743 crore rupees, so it's virtually the same as last year. The education mission allocation down about 600 crore rupees. The health mission allocation down 375 crore rupees. Swachh Bharat allocation up but just by 2,700 crore rupees. PM Kisan allocation down by 8,000 crore rupees. Now that's the data. The data speaks for itself. The money moves. You can say what you are, but the allocation on a sector by sector basis seems to suggest that there has been a reduction in many of the key social sector schemes.
You can get into the numbers game. Let's try and understand the thrust this budget is given for women. Look at the focus on the self-help groups for women. There are about 80 lakhs of them. That's a huge thrust area. You look at farmers, whether it's horticulture, whether it's fishermen, look at the artisans. So I think that there's no question of any slackening of the focus on the social sector. Education, health, skilling, it's all very much on the agenda. I mean, this is a budget which will continue the growth with inclusion thrust of the government. And the main thing is implementation on the ground. As you know, Rahul, this is a government which has over the last 8 years actually delivered results on the ground at scale. I don't think that's ever happened before. And in fact, there's one interesting feature of the finance minister's speech which you may not have noticed. She spoke about the need to move from input-based to outcome-based. And results-based financing will be piloted next year, which is looking at how do you actually achieve outcomes on the ground and have them independently verified. So NITI has been working a lot on that. In addition, the state support mission is taking all the development down and in partnership with the states right down to the block level. So the aspirational block program, which NITI has been working with states on, is taking development all the way down. So I think there's no question of development in the social sector or
Dr.
right
Lai,
down to the grassroots.
Let me get your perspective on this. The numbers suggest that in some of the key social sector schemes, the allocations have actually come down. Is that a robust enough defense, or is just the facts? The numbers speak for themselves, they tell their own story.
See, in social sector, Rahul, I would like to distinguish between two parts. One is health and education. The other is welfare payments. Now, health and education, I think, have not been neglected. But as is natural, we are coming out of a cycle down. The pandemic is over. So insofar as their welfare payments are concerned, I wouldn't be that much worried if those expenditure remain flat or even goes down slightly, particularly because we also know the capacity of the government to spend properly. I mean, you can throw money,
but how much
can you spend
Param Iyer,
effectively?
one area where you've been personally very closely involved is the Jal Jeevan mission. Now, the whole idea that there should be tap water coming into every home before the next election, that scheme has actually seen allocation go up by 10,000 crore rupees from 60,000 crores to 70,000. Give our viewers an update on how far we've reached, how much progress we've made, how much ground is there to cover before water flows out of every home in India.
Yeah, Rahul, so Har Ghar Jal under the Jal Jeevan mission is very much on track. This is another one of the Prime Minister's sort of big bang programs which have basic services at scale, very much like the Swachh Bharat mission. 11 crore, the technical term is functional household tap connections have been set up. They're about 60% of the way, all the way up to the 18 or 19 crore households to be targeted. So it's going on in full swing, it's very much on track. And this is, Rahul, as you know, this is India delivering on the SDGs well before the targeted time of 2030. It happened in sanitation, it's happening in drinking water, it's happening across other sectors. So this is pretty much a government which walks the talk and delivers at scale on schedule.
Thank you, Param Iyer, for joining us. Appreciate your thoughts. Wish you all the best for what you're doing.